Is that not the case in places like Ghana, that inheritance comes through the daughters and so forth?
Well, no, it's always the male, and that is the problem. And it's a mind change. The fact that women do represent a significant part of the society. They do make a contribution. And it's also a respect of the fact that they cannot be invincible, which is what they've been for a long period of time. We've got to be able to respect them. They've got to be able to be rewarded for the work they do. And above all, we've got to be able to give some level of training to them so that they can evolve and be able to be more accountable in the society. But in saying that, if I could say, we do have pluses on the continent. I mean, clearly, recently we've seen the president of Liberia, a female leader, unheard of, really, in African settings. And, of course, more recently in Rwanda, we've had more female MPs outnumbering male MPs in Parliament. This is unheard of in the entire world. In fact, the British Parliament doesn't even have that. So,
no, but you're making this sound like very much towards third world countries. Is this not a global...
This is a problem in Pakistan, particularly because this is a male-dominant society. And recently you heard the news that they have closed the school for the girls in Swat area, in northern side of the country. And then there's a problem with the Christian women, with the problem of the forced conversion. And they're taking the Christian girls and they are converting them forcefully into Islam. And there's so many cases in Pakistan, and I think this is a great issue. And particularly on this day when we are having the Women's Day to the world. And I think we need to raise this point. What is the future of the Christian women and the girls in Pakistan under this pressure?
You've travelled widely as a minister. What have you seen of the plight of women around the world, Pastor Mark?
In some cultures, women are very repressed, and that's seen as correct in some cultures and ideologies. Other cultures I've seen women uneducated and prevented from an education, kept in the home, working long hours. In other cultures, for example China, you will find women often, or baby girls, abandoned because of the one-child policy and they want a boy in the family. Women are often treated as second class in many cultures, and a number of girls, young girls, are sold into prostitution and the sex trade. So absolutely, all of the issues here are vitally important. Again, as we often say, with all of it we're involved in, the answer to all of this is really the gospel of Jesus Christ.
There is neither male nor female.
Absolutely, when we treat all people as equal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'd like to add to that. The solution is, as you mentioned, the Lord, but also the fact that we've got to find a mechanism of reducing the burden time. If women's lives are so burdened, there's quite a few interventions that are happening on the African continent. For example, they're piping water straight onto the village, which means that the journey time that the rural lady would normally have to walk to the river to get water has been curtailed by at least 4 hours. So it means that freeing up of that time, they can actually access education, access training, which can actually enable them to be able to influence decision-making in their environment. So I think that these are some of the ways.
I was just going to say, perhaps I can just say as well, that for some of these ladies, we have an issue with it because we're living in the West. But for some ladies in some cultures, and particularly some African countries I've been to, the ladies don't have a problem with not being educated, with being in the home all day long. We see it as an issue from our perspective. We live in the West, but in some ideologies and cultures, they absolutely don't have a problem with that.
There is a problem with the women ordination.
Ordination.
Well, some of the things that did come out with this Women's Day was, for instance, the campaign against female circumcision. I think in Uganda, particularly, they've raised that. President Bush has just signed a new equalities piece of legislation.
Ex-president.
Ex-president.
Did I say Bush? Obama. How could I get that one wrong? Okay. Do not send emails, do not send letters. I confess I made a mistake. But President Obama has just signed into law a new equalities legislation for women. But you raise an interesting point about women in the home. And here we seem to have a real big problem with parents both at work, nobody parenting the children. They're off to morning breakfast clubs, school, after-school clubs, and maybe the parents are at home to put them to bed. Now, how does International Women's Day feed into that conundrum? Is it to say that women should be back in the home, or is it a division of labour? What do you think the International Women's Day has said to the West? You've spoken a lot about what it said to the Third World. What has it said to the West about women?
It's a recognition that women can go all the way to the top. It's a reflection that women have all the resources at their leisure to improve themselves, and if they wish to do so, they should. It's also a reflection that women can actually vote with their feet, because now they're much more liberated. Liberalisation has come to the economy, and also the fact that with all the support mechanisms that government provides to women these days when they do have children, gives them the flexibility to access all these services and for them to improve themselves. And of course, what we're seeing a lot of in the private sector is that women are taking huge roles, earning huge amounts of money, but the question is the balance, getting the balance right, and it's a family's individual choice as to how that works, because as we've seen in families where both parents are out earning money and the children are left to fend for themselves, we've seen clearly how gun crime and issues around stabbing have become an issue in London streets today.
Well, you have Harriet Harman. We are led to believe angling for the top job. Over here, a woman, and we've seen some role models with... I was impressed, I have to say, with David Cameron's wife, with the way they looked after Ivan and so forth until he passed away. We are now going to have a look at that piece of film that I promised you from Northern Africa. We're going to see 3 clips. I want you to hear what's been going on the ground in northern Nigeria, and then I'm going to ask our panelists to speak to us about the persecution of Christians that we are hearing time and time again, not just from Africa, not just from Asia, but even here in the United Kingdom. Watch this clip.
On the 20th of February, we had to rush to Bauchi to find out what's happening when the Christians started calling for help. And it was a very serious discovery. We found out that almost every single house of a Christian in Railway has been burnt down. And driving into the premises of Kokin Local Church Council in Railway, I found a group of Christian youths who were struggling to protect the church. And they told me all that happened. It all began in this church, Kokin, LCC, Railway, Bauchi. It happened on the 13th of February. He said they are not even happy with what is happening in Jos, that they are going to mobilize Muslims to come there the following Friday to pray in that place, and they must revenge what has happened in Jos. That was the word of the Muslim. On the 20th, the Muslims come again. This time the cars were more than usual, and they tried to park inside the church itself. When the guardman refused to open the gate, all of a sudden, as they were trying to block them from coming in, they began to throw petrol bomb from the fence. You know, this church is right at the back of the fence of the Bauchi city, the old fence of the city. And they started throwing petrol bombs from their houses inside the city onto the houses of the Christians at the back of the fence. And they burned down everything. And they were shooting live ammunitions, bullets that they were using on that. And they killed, in the presence of these young men, they killed 4 people.
So, Bauchi State, this was February 20th. This is just a few weeks ago. This is the first time that report has been shown here in the UK. Systematic burning of Christian homes.